Hello and welcome to a new Google Sheets video in Practical Sheets. Actually today, Google Forms and Google Apps Script. We're going to do a thing that I have been asked a lot of times. And this may not be the definitive answer, but I think it's a first answer. And this is how to create conditional dropdowns in Google Forms. So let's see the example first. We have three countries, Colombia, Canada, and the US. I'm going to choose a country, US, and I'm going to click next, and you can see that now I have the cities for the US. And if I click back and then I go to Canada and click next, I have only the cities for Canada, and then I have submit. I don't have access to the cities from Colombia or from the US. And let's change it. Let's add a new one. Let's add Spain, and we're going to add some cities. I'm going to update my code. Let's go here, let's update. And now I have my 4, and if I click Spain and hit next, I have my 3 cities from Spain. So this is what we're going to do. I'm showing you first what is the logic behind it, doing it with a very simple example with sections, and then we're going to start creating the code that will do this automatically. I hope you like it. And if you want to skip the 30 minutes, you can go to the Patreon page, download the template, and ask me questions. I know this will have a lot of questions because this is just a first step. There are some limitations I will tell you at the end. So without further ado, let's begin with the video. So we're going to start with a very simple list that has countries and has cities. Here we have 3 countries, and each country has 3 cities. What I want to do is to have a question, a drop-down question or a multiple choice question, where I can first choose my country and then I can choose my city. So first we're going to do it manually, and then we'll try to do it by code, so it's a bit more automatic, because when you have 2 countries and 2 cities per country, it's not a problem. But when you have 10 countries and 10 cities per country, this is when we're going to find some issues. So it's not going to be so easy to do it manually, and we're going to have to waste a lot of time. So we're going to open a new Google Forms, Tools, create a new form. Let's call this Choose Your City. So we're going to create a country question. It may be multiple choice, or it may be drop down, whatever you prefer. So we're going to put our 2 countries. For now, let's do Colombia and Canada. And we're going to create 1 question for Colombia and 1 question for Canada. So let's add another question, and we're going to call this city. Again, this may be a multiple choice or a drop-down. I think it's easier for multiple choice, but I think it may work in both when we do the code. Okay, so let's begin with Colombia. We're going to do Bogota, and we're going to do Medellin. And now we're going to create another city. Let's actually duplicate this one. It's also going to be called city, but now we're going to have Toronto and Vancouver. Okay, so up to here, nothing weird. Let's go and see how our form is looking. So we have the country and we have the both cities. Now what I want to do is that when I click Colombia, I only see this question, and when I hit Canada, I only see this question. This we can do it with sections. So I'm going to stand here in my country, and let's click here, add section. This section, I'm going to call it Colombia, and will be this question. I'm going to stand in this question and add the next section that will be called Canada. And that's it. So the whole trick here is that in the country question, I'm going to go here and say, go to section based on answer. And when I hit Colombia, we're going to go to the Colombia section. And when I hit Canada, we're going to go to the Canada section. And we'll make sure that once we do Canada, and we know that here in Canada, well, it will just end the questionnaire. Okay, so now let's do it again. Let's see. And here we have the country. And let's go to Colombia. Click next. And I only have my city from Colombia. Click Medellin. Let's go next, and here we have a problem because it's going to Canada. So I need to go to the section 2 and say here in after section 2, I'm going to say to submit the form. Or we can go to another question that is no country or city, but maybe the product, whatever. Let's do it again. So let's try to do Canada. Next, Toronto, submit. And let's do it again. Let's go Colombia. Next, Bogota, submit. Okay, this is what I want to do. This is the basic. And again, if you only have 2 or 3 questions or 2 or 3 countries, well, it's pretty easy to do it like this, and I wouldn't have too much trouble. But if we have more than 5, maybe 10 countries, and each country has 10 cities, then do it manually. It may take a while. So let's try to do it by code. It's going to be really fun. So we're going to use this again. The first thing I want to do is to be able to delete all of my items. So I'm going to create a function that deletes all of my items. So let's go to a script. We are going to create a function called delete or reset form, better yet, reset form. So for this, first we need the form. So we're going to do form up dot, 2 ways of doing it. We can open by ID or open by URL. Normally I preferred opening by ID, but let's change things a bit. So we're going to do open by URL, and we're going to create a constant that is called form ID or form URL. And here, as a constant, we're going to create this form URL, and we're going to paste the URL of this Google form. Of course, you need to make sure that you have permits or that it's your own form so that it may work. We're going to store this in a variable called form. And now we need to reach all of my sections and all of my questions. These are called items for Google Apps Script. So we're going to say form. Let's see if there's any method related to the items. Actually, there are a lot. So the one I'm going to need is get items. Okay, I'm going to get all items. I'm going to go one by one and start deleting them. So let's store this in a variable called items. And we're going to do a for each or a for loop if you prefer. So we'll do items for each, and for each of the item, for every item, let's do this arrow that is a callback function. For each item, we're going to go to my form and say delete item, and the item I need is this item, is every item. So it's like you have a collection of items and you go one by one and you pass this item to the delete item method. Okay, so it deletes it. It deletes them all. Maybe there's an easier way to delete all items, but I think this is pretty easy, pretty fast. So let's save and let's run. And I believe we're going to be asked for some permissions the first time. Review permissions, my account, allow, and apparently it worked. Let's go to our form, and here I can see that it's empty. It's easier to work like this. So now I have my reset form function. It will serve us later. Now let's begin the fun part. We're going to call this function create conditional. So the first thing I want to create is my first question, the country question. So to create a question, I'm going to go to my form that one thing we could try to do is I would need this thing again, form equals to form up, because this will only work in this function and I need it to work in this other function. So cut this and paste it as a global variable. Be very careful, because if you have a more complex system and you try to do more functions and more triggers and all that, these may trigger some errors in the future. So just be careful. For our purpose and our system, it will work great, but just be careful if you in the future may find some trouble. One of the things that may cause these troubles when you work with more services, with Gmail, with calendar, is that you have this as a global. So you would have to put it again inside the functions. Just a side note. But for now, I think it can work great. So we're going to create a question. How do we create a question? I'm going to call the add method, and the next thing I'm going to need is which kind of question do I need. Let's stick to our multiple choice. So let's click this one, multiple choice item. Now I can give it a name also. Let's set the title to country. Let's call this country question. So it's very clear what it is. Let's save and run. When we do such a complex code, it's good to be testing all the time. So let's reload this. Actually, I run the reset form. I need to run the create conditional form. Let's run it. Let's go here. And I have my country question. But now I need to create the options. So how do I create the options? Here in my country question, I have a method that is called, actually I have two methods, the set choices and the set choice values. Very similar, but you'll see that it has some difference. For now, let's do set choice values. In this simple case, it will be enough. So I need my options. Okay, I'm going to call this country options, and we need to create them. How do we create the country options? We have them here. So I'm going to have to do some array methods to create my country options. The easiest way actually would be to have here an auxiliary table, and I have this in unique, but let's try our array methods so we can do it all inside the code. So first, I'm going to bring all of my table. So for this, I'm going to need first my worksheet. That's going to be spreadsheet app.getActiveSpreadsheet. Then I'm going to need my spreadsheet, that it will be ws.getSheetByName. And I think this is called countries. And finally, I'm going to have my data or my table, however you want to call it, and it will be ss.getDataRange. And I'm going to get the values. This is what I need. Given that I don't need this header, but I'm going to do some filters. Well, I don't need this header, so I'm going to remove it. How do I remove it? Table.onShift. Okay, now I have my table, but I don't need the whole table. First, I only need this first row. And secondly, I only need each individual item, because if you know, the ranges in Google Apps Sheet come as an array. Okay, so if I try to extract this first column, this will be an array, this will be an array, this will be an array, and I need the individual elements. To do these two things at once, I'm going to use the map method. So we're going to do table.map, and we're going to go row by row with a callback function. And for each row, I just need to bring or to convert or to transform in another array just the first element of this row. And we can store this in country options array. Okay, the only thing is that let's log this country options so that you may see that I have just one error that won't allow this to work. Let's review the permissions, because I had the permissions for forms, but I didn't have the permissions for Google Sheets. So let's allow it again. And you can see that I have my countries. Well, actually, I don't know why I have this country. I need to remove this country. I don't know why it didn't remove it. But the thing is that it's repeated. And here it says questions cannot have duplicate values. So I need to remove the duplicate. So the first thing to do, actually it's not on shift, is shift. So I remove the country. And then to remove the options, actually there are a couple of ways, but I'm going to do the one I use the most. And is that I will create another array that will be single country options. Let's call it country options. And for now, it's going to be a simple array. And then I'm going to go for each of the country options, dot for each. And for each option, I'm going to see if the option is in the single country options. So how do I do this? I go single country options dot index of, and let's look for that option. And if that option, if this index of returns -1, it means that it didn't find it. Okay, so if this is equal to -1, and let's enclose this in an if statement. If this is -1, then it didn't find it, and this is very nice, and we need to put the option here inside my single country options. So I will do single country options dot push and push that option, and that's it. If not, if this is duplicate, then it won't put it again. And let's do the logger log of both things, the country options, that is the original, and the single country options. I prefer to leave it separate so you can see the difference. Let's save. And here we are not going to pass to Google Forms the country options, but the single country options, so it will let me. Let's save. Let's run. Okay, I have Colombia, Canada, and US, and I go here, I update. I have Colombia, Canada, and US, but you can see that each time is creating a new question. So this is at the end of the video, we're going to talk about the main difficulty of this method. But for now, this is why I created this first row, this first function. So we're going to, actually, we could do the reset. We could include the reset form function at the beginning of our create conditional form, so it resets before doing anything else. Let's run again. So it first deletes everything and then it creates the question. Okay, so until now, nothing very weird, but I've lasted 20 minutes explaining it. And now it's where the complicated thing comes, that I already did my first question, but the most complex thing is how do I create the next question. I now need to create a question for Colombia, then I need to create a question for Canada, and then I need to create a question for the US. Not only that, I need to populate each of these with the cities of each of the countries, and also, and most importantly, I need to put it inside a section. And finally, I need to, each of these options, remember what we did manually, go to section based on answer and connect with each of the sections that I'm going to create. This is the fun and difficult part. Okay, actually it's not that, you will see that it's not that long of a code. We've already have more than half of it. Actually, I'm going to delete all of this so you can see it's not a very, very big code, but it will be interesting. The key here, I have these single country options where I have US, Canada, and Colombia. I'm going to use this as my starting array. We're going to do single country options for each, and we're going to create for each of the options, let's call this country option. We're going to do a lot of things. The first thing I need to do is to create the section. Remember what we did in our sample? First, we're going to create the section for each country. Let's begin with the first one. So Colombia. So how do we create this? There's in the form, there is a method called add page break item. You can see that there is another one that is called add section header item. So this is where you can get confused. We're going to use the page break item. We're going to call this the section. Then we're going to put a title to it. So set title, and it will be my country option, that in this case is Colombia. Okay, up until now, nothing weird. Now we're going to create the question. So let's create the city question, and this will be, now that I create the section, the question will be created inside this section. So this is why I have to go country by country and doing it. So the question is created inside the section. So we're going to do form, very similar to how we created our first question. So it will be add multiple choice item, and we're going to set the title to, again, the country option. So when you do this city question thing and you have all these line, form and multiple choice item, set title, you would think that this set title will change anything, but actually what is storing is this part, form and multiple choice item, and the set title is like an additional thing that is going, but it will not affect my variable. Okay, just a side note. Now that I have my question, I'm going to create the options, very similar to what we did here. So given that we need to also remove the duplicates, here in our case, I don't have duplicates, so I shouldn't have to do it, but maybe it's a good thing to do. For now, let's not complicate it. I'm already at 25 minutes in the video, so if you need to remove the duplicates, you can do the same thing we did here, but it's not necessary in this time. So I'm going to go again to my table, and before doing my map, the map we did at the beginning, I'm going to do a filter because I only need the cities that correspond to this particular country, in our case to Colombia. So I'm going to say that for each option, please filter anything where my option in the position 0, so in this column, equals to Colombia. That is my country option. Okay, this is the filter. Then I'm going to map it. I'm going to do the map, very similar to how we did it before. We're going to do option and please bring, but now remember that up here I did, where is my map? Here, row equals a bring or callback function, row in the position 0. So I'm going to do the same, row, but now I don't need it in the position 0, but in the position 1, because I want to return the city, not the country. Okay, row in the position 1. And I'm going to store this in a variable called city options. And that's it. Again, because I don't have duplicates, I don't have to do all of these single country options, all of these 3 lines. Okay, but you may have to do it, so just you can copy it and change the appropriate variables. Now I have my city options, so I'm going to go to my question, my city question, and do set. This is where it becomes a bit different, because remember that before we did set choice values, but here, and we're going to do set choice values again and put my city options. Let's see if this works. Let's save and let's run it. It should take a while because it has to first create the question and then the question of the country and then each of the questions of the city. So here, Colombia, Canada, US, we're doing good. Then Medellin, Cartagena, Bogota for Colombia, we're going great. Here, I don't see the title. Let's reload. It may be that. So here, Colombia, and I have my question Colombia with my 3 cities. Then I have Canada for the section, then the question Canada with my 3 cities, and then the section US with the question US and the 3 cities. The 3 options are the 3 cities. For now, it works really nice, but I'm missing the last part. Let's see how this works. If I go to Colombia, it works, but if I go to Canada, again, it goes to the next question, that is Colombia. So I'm missing the last part. That it's difficult to do the first time, but now that I know it, it's more simple. So I'm going to remove one thing here. I told you I did this country question, set choice values for the single country options, but I'm going to remove this because actually I'm going to create the options for the country at the end. Once I have my sections and my cities, now I'm going to, at the end, I'm going to create this. Why? Because as I'm creating the options, I'm going to do this, the go to section based on answer, and I'm going to tell the option to which section I'm going to do it as I'm creating it. Okay? So this, I'm going to paste it at the end. Why? Because I need to do something before. With these single country options, I need to do something. Actually, I may change the array I'm going to put here. So I'm going to take this, the values is the last thing I'm going to do. The values for my country is the last thing I'm going to put. So I'm going to cut this, put it after I create all of my cities, all of my city sections and questions, because there's one thing missing. I'm going to start creating the choice of the country question. So once I create the section, once I create the city question, you can see that here I have this section and I haven't used it yet. So I'm going to go to my country question and I'm going to create a choice. You can notice that I'm not going to put it in the choices yet. I'm just going to create the choices. For this, I'm going to use a method called create choice. This is why I need to use, here I'm not going to use set choice values, but I'm going to use another thing that is called set choices. That it's a bit different, because choice values, as the name implies, will only receive some values. But when I create an object choice, I can give another option or some more arguments. And the argument I need to give is to which section will it go once I click on it. Okay, so this is the main trick of all this video. So I'm going to create the choice, and the choice will be the country option, let's say Colombia. And again, the whole trick is that after the country option with a comma, I'm going to put this other argument that is called the page navigation type. To where is it going? And where is it going? To this section that I created. I only created this section so that I could say to my choice that once I click it, it will go there. That's it, nothing more. And I'm going to put this country question in my country options. So actually, I'm going to, if you want, I'm going to create another array that may be called final country options. Here outside my loop, I'm going to create it. Let final country options, for now it will be empty. And each time I go for each country, then I'm going to add each choice. Okay, so let's store this in a variable called country choice. And we're going to push to my final country options. We're going to push this country choice, because what I need at the end for this set choices method is an array of options, of choices. Okay, so this is what I'm doing. I created an object choice, a choice object, and I'm putting this in an array. And each time for each country, I'm doing another choice and another choice. And at the end, I'm going to put all my choices in the country question. It may sound a bit weird because this is a thing that is not so commonly used. Okay, let's save and let's run it. So it's a good sign that it's taking a while. Let's go here. It's my question, it's my sections, 1, 2, 3 with appropriate cities. And now let's see if actually I think there's one thing missing. Okay, so let's go here. Let's update. Let's choose a country, Colombia. Perfect. Let's go back. Let's choose Canada. Next. And it goes to Canada. Nice. And let's choose US. Next. And it goes to US. The only thing is that if I go to Colombia and click next, and then I click next, it will go to Canada. Remember, we also had this problem at the beginning of our video. So we need to do something to my question, to this question I have created, to this city question, so that for all options that I've created here, they all go to the end once I choose them. Okay, here you can see that there is an option here, for example, that says continue to next section. So let's see if my section has anything I can do for it. Here I can say set go to page, and I could say form up dot page navigation type, and then I could say submit. Yeah, so it always goes to the end. This is the only thing. Let's save and let's run it one more time. Let's go here. Let's update. Let's go for, okay, I need to update is the preview. Let's go to Canada. Let's say next. Let's choose Vancouver. And here I have submit. If you have more questions after that, then you will need to change this submit. Actually, there are some others. There may be continue or go to a specific page. You can ask me in the questions and we can try to fix this for some other particular options. Okay, this may have to be more tricky to know which page to go and all that, but submitting them for the moment works great. And that's it. It works very, very good. The thing is, and here is my limitation, I told you at the beginning of the video, there's a limitation with this method, is that I cannot update it. I don't know yet how to update it. There may be a way. I have tried and I haven't been successful, but now that you know this, maybe you can work it out and find a solution, but I haven't been able to update it. So this is why I need this reset form. always delete all the questions and put some new ones. So this may prove to be a trouble when you have connected with a Google Sheet. For example, look at this, my form responses. Here you can see that I have a lot of Colombia, Canada countries, a lot of cities, because I have been doing some tests, and it will always create new and new and new questions. So this is the big problem that I have, that I can create it the first time, but if the options change, then it has to delete the previous questions and then put some new questions. So for now, it doesn't seem as a problem, but when I'm starting to compile questions or connect with a Google Sheet, there's when I'm going to have some trouble. Okay, so the step missing in this, and this is where I'm turning the page to you, is to update it. I'm going to try to do it, but I had to get this out of my system because I had it a couple of years ago, and I think it may be useful for some of you, and at least start a conversation to see if we can get to a full system that may also update the questions. I haven't been able to. It's been very difficult to connect to the sections, to know which section. To the questions I can connect because they have an ID number, but to the sections it's a bit more tricky, and I haven't been able to. But I'll try now that I have this out, and I'll continue trying to see if we can get to an answer. So I hope you liked it. I thought it will be shorter, but it took a while. You can go to the Patreon page where you can download the full template, and you can ask me quick questions about it. And if not, you can just subscribe to the channel or give me a like or a comment, and this will be enough. See you next time, and thank you so much to all of my patrons. I have only gratitude for you. See you next time.